A one and a two and a chick-a-boom a chick.
All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Remodelers on the Rise. Today I have Rob Baugher. Rob, tell everybody hello.
Hello, everyone.
Well, there we go. And Rob and I have known each other for many, many years. I think I mentioned this to you before, Rob, but I think it was early. I've been doing this for 12 years, and it was pretty early on. I think maybe we met at one of the remodeling shows or something like that. And for years, it was just like, he's just a really nice guy, like encouraging. You'd respond back to some of my emails that I send out, and just had kind of built a little bit of a relationship through that. And then I started that little Facebook group, and you've been an active participant in there. And then we got to see each other at the irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS, International Builder Show. A few months ago, and it was just really good to see you. And I'd been meaning to get you on the podcast, and here we are.
It's good to be here. This will be fun.
There we go. So I had posted on Remodelers Community. I said, people, and I put a nice little picture of us from IBS, and I said, people, I've got Rob coming on the podcast, and we're going to talk. What should we talk about? And we started to get people to post some different questions and some different things. And our format for today is just to answer the people's questions. We are here to serve.
That's it.
There we have it. So we're going to start. We're going to start with Josh. We can use last names. Josh Dean. Josh Dean. He said, and we're getting right into it, Rob. He's mentioned in this group a kitchen remodel taking only 1 week. Can he expound on that? Let's start with that.
Okay. I had a client come to me and ask if we could remodel his kitchen in 1 week. His wife was going out of town on a mission trip, and she would be gone for exactly 1 week. And he was contacting us months ahead of time. First, we explained to him that we thought he was crazy, that he would leave her out of that decision. It's like having your wife build a custom car for you. It's like, this is maybe. Anyway, he assured us that they had talked for years about what she wanted, and that this would work. And so we said, well, okay, we know that it will work on your end, but I need time to figure this out because we've never done anything like this fast. But I look forward to working on it, but I need time. He said, well, we got plenty of time. So she was traveling in the spring. This was the winter. I went to the company and I put a blanket request out. I said, on Tuesday evenings, we're going to get together outside of work. I'll provide dinner. I need people to come and think of how we might be able to build a kitchen in 1 week. If you're interested in that as just buddies getting together, then let's do it. So everybody volunteered to their credit. And we got and you have to understand, we had a chalkboard. We didn't have whiteboards. This was way back in the early 2000s, Kyle. You might know.
Way back in the early 2000s. I'm pretty sure they had whiteboards back then, but fair enough.
Okay, maybe it was 1999.
Fair enough.
So we got together every Tuesday night. The first, I presented the challenge. We drew it up on the board. And I said, is there a way? And everyone said, why are we even here? It always takes us 3 weeks to do a kitchen. And I said, I don't know. We're just trying to figure it out. So we went through, and after about 2 weeks, we had gotten a meeting. We got it down to where it was like we were getting a little faster. And then on the third week, we got a little bit faster. And on the fourth week, we had gotten it down to 2 weeks, and everybody was celebrating. It was a party. And I said, okay, let's come back next week and let's see if we can do better. And they were like, you're crazy. This is as good as it gets. They came back the next week. We worked some more. We interjected the idea of using a timeline to schedule everything that was happening, not just have conversations, but let's put it on the board. Created a timeline of how to do it. About the 7th week, I think it was, we finished the timeline and we had it down to 1 week. We could do the kitchen in 1 week. if we put this crew here and this crew here, and this person came at this time and left at this time, and these people were ready to come in, but we only were working 40 hours a week. So it had to be within regular hours. And of course, we're using all subs. And so with one project manager on site. So what we did is we said, okay, here's everybody. When we got it to 1 week, there was no cheering. Everybody just stared at the board like, what did we miss? Anyway, so what we did is I took the job folder and handed it to a new project manager who had never done remodeling before. I think they were a purchasing agent with the company when I met them and hired them in. And I gave them the folder and said, first off, go back to the guy, said, we can do this. We'll need to design it. We had to, when she went to the grocery store, we had to sneak into the house to measure. We had to leave and make sure there were no tracks, and so we were having to get in and out and have secret meetings with him at work and got everything ready to go. She took off on the mission trip. If she had turned around when she left the driveway, she would have seen 5 trucks and people with sledgehammers going in the door. It was instant demolition and everything piled up in the driveway. And then the job takes off from demolition. It's just we followed every step that we normally do, except we had time frames tied into everything. And the entire job was going along. On Tuesday, the owner came to me and said, could you go ahead while you're here, in a 1 week kitchen, could you go ahead and finish out, add more lighting to the rest of the den and change the flooring in the den and paint the den. And while you're in, could you do the foyer and with the new flooring and painted? And we said, let us check. So we went back, compared what we would need to do to the time schedule, contacted him back 2 hours later and said, yes, we can do that too. And so our sub schedules, were extended. People moved where they needed to be. And then we finished the job. We were leaving as he was going to pick her up from
just like on the TV shows.
It's worse than that, Kyle. We had taken pictures of everything in her kitchen.
Extreme Makeover Home Edition.
And we had restocked all of her cabinets in the same location and even restocked the new refrigerator the way she had the old one. And the beauty of the job is that when she came in the door, she saw the foyer floor. She thought he'd had the foyer done. And then she walked in and there was the den kitchen combination and everything was completely finished and no dust, no mess. And we did have one callback. Somebody had left a shelf pin out on a shelf inside a cabinet.
Nice job, guys. Way to screw this whole perfect thing up. So as I'm listening to this, I'm hearing a couple things. One, something actually fun for your team to sink their teeth into, not the same old, a new challenge,
Yes.
and also starting out by seeing what we think, when you were going through, like we whittled it down, it reminded me of like the first guy that broke the 4-minute mile. It's impossible. Then somebody does it. And once he did it, within no time, there was just dozens and dozens of people that were able to do it because it's like, oh, wait, this is possible. I imagine that while that was a very unique situation, I imagine that mentality and the lessons learned there started to flutter through the entire business. I think maybe that's probably the bigger lesson here.
That was the surprise. Because we'd come up with that system and the guys were using it, it actually started showing up. The guys would go, well, I could do this way, and I could do this way. And they were taking things. We tell people we were trying to get better as a company. We got faster by accident. We were sitting in a staff meeting. I had 5 people around the table going over the paperwork. And I said, what's going on with this job? Some other type project. I said, it always takes us 4 weeks to do this. It only took 3 weeks. And I said, why were we 25% faster? Nobody at the table had any idea. What was happening, we were ingraining habits that we had learned from, we did a one-day kitchen that somebody heard about. They heard about that.
1 week kitchen. Let's not get crazy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah.
1 week kitchen. that we actually popped that idea to the editors of a local magazine. They did a full spread on it. We got free advertisement because of it. Other people started asking us, can you do it? And so that led to that. Then someone said, can you do a 1 week bath? And so we did.
So did you end up making this a recurring thing? It wasn't like, well, that was just a special thing. Now we can do it in 2 weeks normally, or did you really make it a marketing approach?
We did use it in our marketing because it was so significant, so different. We thought that's it. From now on, everyone will want this. And that didn't happen. People were more like, I think they were afraid. They didn't believe you could really do it that quick. And they were concerned about the quality. And so we would say, if you want, we could do this faster. And they go, no, it's okay. It's okay. 3 weeks is fine.
Gotcha.
And then we would do it without any pressure and begin to finish, jobs in less and less time.
Got it. On this topic, one more thought is, I think I remember you posting related to that, or somebody was asking, how do you do that? And you started talking about the approach when it comes to countertops, because a lot of times that can end up being a delay. Speak to that real quick, and then we're going to move on to the next question.
Sure. In particular, on one of the kitchens, what we did is it was a Corian countertop. And so it could be prefabricated and then finished on site very simply. That wasn't a big complication because of the flexibility of Corian. But then we got into granite, and that's the biggest argument that I have with everybody I tell about this. Well, there's no way it takes a week and a half, 2 weeks to get granite. And I said, well, it actually doesn't, but you have to develop a partnership with your local fabricator. And so I went to a company that actually had produced the stone for the Pentagon, and they're a local company. And I said, I would like for you to do this, and I'd like for you to produce this in 3 days. And they said, well, we've never done that. And I said, well, would you like to know how? And I didn't mean that in an arrogant way. I was just saying, if you will produce this in 3 days, I said, I will pay you 100% upfront to do the job. And so you make the money faster and it's better for you. And here's how I think you could do that. And I laid out a time schedule for them. And they said, well, we could do that. And so I think on the novelty of it, they took on the challenge. They came to the job site, measured everything, were able to make phone calls and shoot data back to the shop. The slab had already been pulled and put on the table. They had already had the bulk of the slab cut. By the time the guys were getting back, they were finishing cutting the slab. They had all the day Tuesday to do the fabrication of the edges, and then brought the slab out to us on Wednesday. And so we actually can get granite done that quickly. What you do is you go to your supplier and you sell them on the time value of money, and they get it, and they will go right with you on that. And so we did that with all of our different suppliers.
Yeah. The biggest thing to remodelers listening to this is not to get caught up in the 1 week aspect of it or the 3 days. That's silly. What you need to hear here is when you're sitting down for a production meeting, words out of your mouth as a leader of the business, I think we can get that done in a week less than that. What do you guys think? And then staying after a little bit and saying, well, time out. Let's just pretend. Let's just pretend that we are going to knock a week off of this project.
Yeah,
how would you do it?
I know we
Right?
can't, but what if we could?
I know we can't, but what if we could? And what you were describing there of the week in and week out, of the first 2 weeks, well, we shaved a little bit. And then week 3, everybody was celebrating. And then week 4, well, we pushed them even further. I think that's, as leaders of the business, we've got to make sure we're not stuck in a rut, or this is the way we've always done it, or that's impossible. Oftentimes, like what you're describing there is some thought, is some creativity, is some conversation with somebody that's never even been asked, can you do this in 3 days before? That's the lesson. And I think that lesson should kind of ebb and flow. And that lesson goes from, hey, I know you guys are just starting today, but do you think you could get this done, by X amount? And we got to balance speed and quality, of course, right? We're not trying to rush through things, but the challenge of it should, and also just the challenging of our team. There's one of my clients right now is having an issue where they build cabinets, and just they're super efficient out there, and just the way that things come in, there's some idle downtime. And all of a sudden we're thinking through, okay, if we have some idle downtime, instead of freaking out and saying, oh, we're slow this week, what are we going to do? What if we had something, just a totally different something that we could build in those hours that we have some downtime? Let's get creative with it. And all of a sudden now at first he's kind of like, and then he's like, I mean, saunas or like just all over the board. Well, we could make these cool bird feeders. And I'm like, could? How much are you gonna sell them for? Well, yeah, $20. That's gonna require a lot of those. Think different. Oh, well, what about this? Oh, what about that? So just thinking differently is such a huge thing. Even what we were talking about before we got on, we were talking about my business a little bit and how coaching consulting works and what you're up to with consulting. And it's one of those things where there's not a one size fits all on it. It depends on your business, your goals, your work-life balance. So
Right.
continue to get creative with this is, I think, a huge lesson there. All right, we got to go on to the next question. You ready?
Okay.
David Hamtil, the prettier of the two Hamtil brothers down in St. Louis. They thought that was funny. You did too, but I thought Rob is running a remodeling company where most, if not all, phases of work are subcontracted, and maybe he only has a project manager. Would like to hear more about how this works and if he made the switch from in-house to subcontracted labor only. And then Tiffany and Susan both kind of said, yeah, ask him about that. So
Sure.
talk about that.
Sure. I came up with the concept in the mid 90s and thought it through, planned it out, and then introduced it to the company. That basically I had 14 employees, and it was about 1998, I believe. And I informed everybody that we were going to go to full subs and that I needed project managers. And we worked with the natural attrition of people who were leaving. Of course, we still had all full office staff, but, and I encouraged everyone to go into business for themselves, set up a corporation, buy their insurances, get licensed, and let me subcontract to them. And, as far as the whole in-house, because
what prompted you to go that route and make that decision?
We had always this is, like my 47th year in remodeling. We have always experimented and we weren't afraid to. You had to be reasonable, but you needed to try things. And what I saw in that is that if I hired subcontractors that, though I had the skills to do the remodeling, they were faster, and there were 3 of them on a crew or 5 of them or whatever. And I could not compete with them on speed. And I wanted to produce the jobs faster. And their quality should be top notch because this is all they did. And based on that, I wanted to make that transition. And instead of having all of our people and all of our crews and all of our equipment, it was like, can I streamline the business? And so what we did,
a little less jack of all trades, master of none, a little bit more specialized. Okay. I think everybody would kind of nod their head as they're listening to that. That makes sense.
it's like I could be the best trim carpenter out there, but I can only do so much work. If I pick up the trade contractors, it changes everything. Now I can multiply myself, and I was looking for that. And so we transitioned from that. I still had the full-time project managers who were working for me. There were just a few guys who just didn't want to be project managers. And it's like, I understand. They wanted to work on a crew. I helped them, get jobs, with my friends. And so we began to move through that, and we did that for about 10 years. And then I began to realize that we could take this to the next level, which goes beyond what David is asking about. But, and I began to subcontract my project managers also. So all of my project managers run their own businesses. And I have one project manager. This is the other thing. I have one project manager on one job. So that each one of them, instead of running 4 or 5 jobs, they run one. And all of my friends tell me, you can't do that. It's too expensive. And I explain to them that I'm actually more profitable by doing this because I'm faster. And where my company in the early 2000s, my company was 25% faster. And then as we began to concentrate on that, realizing what was happening, then we ran the numbers two years later, and we realized that we were 40% faster at building projects than we had been across the board. So some projects are even faster than that, but that was our average. So that became a selling advantage, is that we can do this and we can build it quickly. And no one else was using that in their sales process. So I actually run a corporation of one, and everyone, my receptionist, my bookkeeper, my design staff, everyone was subcontracted. And so I no longer needed the 5,000.
What was frustrating about that though? Because everybody's like, "Oh, that sounds interesting," but isn't it nice to have a few people kind of on staff that you can just say, "Hey, I need you to run out there, run over there." What would you say to that?
I think it wasn't frustrating for us because we had planned for that. And we knew what everybody's role was. And so everyone stayed in their lane. And I really didn't need that. We really pushed the fact. We knew that the guys would need a gopher or someone to deliver this material and that. So we switched to different suppliers who would drive to the job site. If we needed one stud, they would bring it to us. And so we paid them for the service. We actually paid a little bit more than what we could have been paying, but we wanted that service, which eliminated people on staff.
But no suppliers are going to be willing to take out one stud. Huh?
They will bring you a
There, there you go again, Rob. Again, doing things that aren't actually possible. But again, it's similar to, well, we started seeing that. Of course, it's construction. We're going to forget this, and we paid extra. So, what's an example of that? Like going to one of your suppliers and saying, "I know this is a weird request. I know this kind of puts you guys out a little bit, but we'll be willing to pay you X to do this type of thing." How did that conversation go?
Well, it's like you've already got the trucks and you already have the manpower. It's like, and basically we came to a deal with one of our suppliers and said, "I will pay you whatever price you tell me it's going to cost me for the materials. And I will not argue with you on price, but I want service." And he was like, "That's exactly the kind of company I want to build." And so they jumped on board, and we have had, now on our side of it, we'll order 10% extra on the material so that we eliminate that. And they're glad to come pick up the extra and haul it off on their regular,
Gotcha. This approach of most all subcontractors versus an in-house staff, do you think that's a good fit for everybody?
Actually, I really do. I really think that is the way that this can go in the future. Everyone's complaining about, "I can't get good workers. I don't have," if you think about everything involved with employees and what you have to have as far as an operating system, I have eliminated that operating system. And there are so many advantages to that. And as long as there are contractors, contractors, then there's no limit to what I can do. So it's like I've had up to 7 project managers running 7 jobs at the same time with basically a minimal staff on my part, and no headaches, no hassles. I never have to fire anyone. I just don't hire them.
And it's interesting, I think, for people to hear, well, I started going this route, and then I still had some in-house, help here or there. And then about 10 years after that, decided this. I think some people hear like the end result and forget that there's steps involved to get there.
There's a process.
It's not that it's like, "Hey, go tomorrow, fire everybody." No, maybe there's one person that's already been talking about wanting to start their own gig. They're super gifted in this area, and maybe you do encourage them that way, and you find a way to kind of partner up with them. It's interesting that we're talking about this on March 16th, when we're in the middle of all the fear and worry and concern that's going on with coronavirus. And I'm sitting here thinking today of going, what am I talking to my clients about, and what do we need to be thinking about? And if we have a big fat staff and an expensive staff, when there's blips in the radar, we better have a good, war chest of cash, to weather storms, or as I'm listening to you go, reducing risk. The business that you're describing, or even a business that has 10 in-house staff and you tweak it to 7, is a less risky business than somebody that has 10. So those are, again, not one size fits all. Go ahead.
It's all about eliminating risk. Everything about this does that. And it's like because I don't have staff, it's like because I don't have 7 people in the office, what we did is we used technology to cover for those. We use technology so that if someone's calling me, they get my reception.
You talking about whiteboards instead of chalkboards?
Yeah, super technology.
Okay. Right. I mean, we've got Zoom. We're talking via Zoom. We've got ability to FaceTime. There's just, What's going to be super interesting about this coronavirus is all of a sudden people are like, okay, maybe I should use Loom to record my screen and show the design and send that off. Maybe I do need to have more meetings via Zoom. I think this is going to be a big spark in people realizing, wait a minute, I can save time. I can reduce my cycle time from the time they sign the design agreement to the time this contract signed through all this technology. Yeah.
And
cool.
It's literally the benefit of moving through the jobs faster. Everyone wins when you do that.
Okay, so let's pause there, because that's often misunderstood. Or tell me more about that. When you say I make more money when I get jobs done quicker, a 4-week kitchen is more profitable than a 6-week kitchen. Explain that a little bit.
Well, let me use a different illustration. The one that I use.
Rob, I find that I have to do this during most all my podcast episodes.
On the track.
No. See, I have to do this on my podcast episodes. I told you 4-week kitchen is more profitable than 6-week kitchen. This is my podcast. I'm running the show. And what do you immediately do? I don't like that example. I'm joking. Please go with a better analogy, sir. What do you got?
Okay. Okay. Let's say I have a 10-week job.
Okay.
This is easier to understand, Kyle.
Okay.
It is. And we consistently can produce a 10-week job in 6 weeks. So with that, I'm 40% faster. Now, is my customer going to come?
I was going to make a joke and say, is that 40% markup or margin? Can you explain that? But I decided not to. 40% faster.
Faster. That's why I don't use those terms.
Yes, carry on.
In this illustration, at least. Okay, I'm 40% faster. Is the customer upset if I get out of their house a month sooner?
No.
My project manager is a subcontractor. If he finishes a 10-week job in 6 weeks, I pay him for 10 weeks. Is he going to finish in 6 weeks? If I get
incentive to.
If he has the ability to, and if we created the system so that he can, or she, we have both, then they finish. They literally went from being an employee making $50,000 to being a subcontractor making $90,000. They got an 80% pay raise by switching over to the system. They're the ones who are making it work. They're the ones who make sure that they get paid. So in the company, it's like, so what does the company get out of it? Actually, the company has this massive overhead. And if I can shorten the work time on the jobs, then the overhead goes down. And if the overhead goes down, I make more profit, gross net profit. As a percentage of each project, the overhead goes down. And then it's repeated. And the guys that I'm subcontracting to actually are doing work for other people also. So they're running their own business and doing the remodeling for other people. But when they work for me, they're just my project manager. No tools, can't wear tools on the job. All they can do is manage, and they manage full time so that no time is lost. And that's how this efficiency works.
Yeah. And even if I'm a remodeler listening to this and I have in-house staff and I have a project manager that's on staff and I've got lead carpenters, even in that case, you're turning a 10-week project into a 6-week project.
Yes.
All of a sudden there's more production that we can get done in those 10 weeks. Therefore, a higher gross sales, which leads to a lower percentage on each project of overhead, AKA we're more profitable, right?
Exactly. And in my system, I don't have, because I'm making weekly draw checks to my subcontractor and then a final check when they finish the job. I don't have the administrative work of processing all of that paperwork. They're getting the full fee. They're responsible for their own taxes. I write the check to their corporation. I don't control their time. They control their time. We hit every one of the federal guidelines as far as how the business is set up. They're completely independent, but they are working, and I don't have to oversee them and beat them with a stick to try to get them to go faster, because if they go faster, they make more. So instead, I'm not someone who's standing there to reprimand them. I'm there cheering them on and helping them stay on task and completing the job. So if they win, I get even more protection.
This is good so far, Rob.
So far?
Yes. So far, so good. It's hitting on one. I think a lot of people listening to this, if they've been following either one of our private Facebook groups, have kind of seen some of these ideas, but to expand on a little bit, and I think it's similar to the podcast I recently did with Michael Anschel, where he's talking about transparency, and what I was really wanting people to do when they listen to that is not say, well, I don't like the way he does it. I just don't think that I would agree. Stop. Don't listen to that. Don't let your mind go there. You need to listen to this and say, okay, for me and my business, using the business I've built, the knowledge that I have, the new ideas that are starting to come into my head, what does this mean for me? And frankly, what's the next right thing to do related to this?
Right.
Maybe I need to talk more about it. Maybe I need to think more about it. Maybe I need to run some numbers. Maybe somebody on the team really comes to mind and go, maybe I could convert that person to this. Maybe instead of hiring that new person, I should really just fully find a trade partner to do all of our tile work. There's think about these ideas and challenge yourself with what could be the next thing. Not, well, Rob does it this way and that's the only way to do it, and I just don't know how to get there. Find the principles here and learn and do something with it. Cool. So Michael had a question about transparency, smiley, 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 but we're not going to go there. He had his moment a couple of podcasts ago, but we are going to go with another question from David Hamtel, as I said earlier, Paul's ugly brother. I just reversed that so that I've insulted each of them individually now. But what David also asked was, I would also suspect Rob has a wealth of knowledge to teach about sales and closing. I saw he commented on a post that Rob, if you're going to toss numbers out like this on a public forum, you're going to get asked about it.
I know.
On a post, he has a 93% closing rate. What did he do to get to this point? And tell us about that.
Okay, and here we go back into your sweet spot. It has to do with branding and marketing. That's where it starts. Most people think the sales is all about, I need that special sentence as I'm sitting there in front of the client to close the deal. It goes all.
So for example, like the bathroom close, like you present the stuff and then you say, hey, do you have a bathroom I could use? And then you get up and go to the bathroom. And then during that time, the couple have a time to kind of say, you feel good about this? Yes. And then they'll sign. You're talking about that kind of tip?
Yeah, the magic tips.
Okay. Yes. You're saying it's not that. So tell me more about what it is.
Closing number 97.
Yes. There you go.
Here it is. It's like, and so I have to go into a little of this to give you the other. Everyone is approaching their marketing and advertising with the social media twist that's out here right now. I created an avatar of my client, and my client doesn't really use a lot of computer. They're not completely, up to speed as the mass majority. My client is older. And so I want to know, how do I get to them? Well, they love print. They like the feel of the newspaper. They like to read magazines. Though many people are going away from that, that's where my client lives. So I want to go to that. I take my marketing and if you give Google or your IT guy $5,000-$10,000 a month, he can put ads out everywhere, and he can throw a big net and scoop up everybody and drive them right back to your business and pull the net and drop all of those fish right in your business. You're going to need 2-3 full-time people to go through the fish and throw away all of the bad leads and only keep the good ones. So now you got a problem there. You got staff that's processing all of this stuff. Well, what we do in our approach instead is we actually use a laser to go after our client. This is our client. This is who they are. This is where they live. This is where they drive. This is where they eat. This is what they read. Let's market to them. Let's serve them. Let's help them. Let's be there for them. And then the beautiful thing about the 93% closing rate is that if my telephone rings, I close 93% of those people in a construction contract. I don't get phone calls from people who don't know who I am or what I do, because I'm not advertising on the internet and I'm not using the social media guys, because I don't want the hassle of going through all the leads. You know how you feel when they call you on the phone and they want to sell you the warranty? Mm-hmm. You hate the company, and there's a reason why they don't tell you who the company is, because you hate that guy for bothering you. Well, to me, that's what Google and social media does. They can grab all of those people out there, but they're not your customer. Your customer is in this fine little pile, somewhere down in the middle of all of those numbers. I don't want those numbers.
So you've
clients.
Gotcha. So what it sounds like is, as far as zeroing in on what is my most valuable marketing asset, my most valuable marketing asset are all of my previous clients, because they come back for more work, the
Yes.
referrals from those previous clients, because we've already built know, like, and trust with them and have that relationship going. It sounds like, one, you've doubled and tripled down on that. I feel like when you said print, tell me about, I think you did a print newsletter for a number of years, or you maybe, consistently. But you're also saying, okay, what are they reading and where are they? Because if this is my clients and I'm talking to my clients and they're telling me, well, I'm here and here, the other people that are also there are my ideal clients. And again, the concept of this, the principle of this, getting really clear with who your ideal client is.
Yes.
Your ideal client may not be what Rob is describing. Of course, everybody's is different, but who is it? Where are they? They may be on social media.
Mm-hmm.
But talk to me a little bit about that thought of, is it really doubling and triple downing on who your ideal client is, and being your previous clients a lot of times?
One of the things we did is we had a radio show over a 10-year period at 3 different radio shows on Saturday. It's a call-in talk show. And on that, what we do is we present who the company is, we answer their questions, but we're constantly telling people who we are and what kind of projects we do. So we're painting that image in their minds. If they just need someone to repair a screen door, my phone never rings. If they need one of the 7 projects that we do, kitchens, baths, second stories, whole house remodels, etc., then they're going to hear that in my conversation. My brand is established, and then they decide to make a call to me. We also produced our own in-house magazine, and with that, we could show our own projects, and we could, we print a magazine and it's all of our kitchens, and we wrote all the articles, and that is mailed out to 9,000 subscribers. And then we do another magazine, and it's all of the bathrooms that we've done.
It's expensive, Rob.
It's terribly expensive. But the radio show brings in $1 million worth of leads a year. The magazine brings in $500,000 worth of leads every month. So it's expensive, but it's targeted. And if I'm getting that 93% closing ratio, which I am, then I'm not wasting my time or my money. By the way, we can talk about this too, but in my magazine, I have 14 places for advertisers. And so I sell advertising in my magazine, and my magazine actually doesn't cost me anything. And my radio show, I sell advertising on my radio show. And so I'm being paid to be on the radio, to advertise my company. I'm being paid to market my company.
So is a radio show something that you did for 10 years and you're kind of like done with that Saturday morning thing? Or was it, how long ago was that you were doing the radio side?
I hated continuing the losing the Saturday mornings. And so the last time when I left radio, which was probably 8 years ago, doing that, the idea was to go online and create groups online if I wanted to do the same thing, or shift gears, try something different. And it's basically, I would leave some of the radio stations, for example, when I felt I had fished out the pond, when the calls and the leads were gauging everything that's coming and going. And when I'm not getting as many leads from the radio show, then I know it's time to close, maybe go to a different station, create the show there, because I fished out the pond. It doesn't matter how much I stay on the air. I'm not going to get any more leads from that group until they restock. And then I would go back to the other radio station 3 years later, and then it's good again. And so you're judging everything that's happening.
Got it. So I think the big thing there on that topic is, it's not so much, obviously the sales process needs to be dialed in. We need to not be giving our time away. We need all of that. But it's interesting, the way you answered that was, 90% of it, although we know that 42% of all statistics are made up.
I thought it was 43.
Yeah, it could have been. A good percentage of the work has already been done by the time the phone rings. There's a lot of thought and qualifying that's gone on before that.
That is literally our attitude, is that if the phone rings, our attitude is, this is my job to lose. I have got the job. I just don't need to lose it. And from there, we walk them over and we start our process of, putting them into our system and working with them to move them to the point where they're signing the construction contract.
Okay, excellent. More to talk about there, but we're going to keep cruising because I think we got some good nuggets out of that. Tate Watson, he said at the end of it, he said, make sure you keep him for 90 plus minutes. We're going to talk for, this recording is probably going to be a good 60 minutes, but we had 30 minutes of just Rob Kyle time before. So I kept him for 90 minutes. You're just hearing 60 of it. So Tate said, what's that?
So you met his requirements.
Yes, correct. I aim to please. Some numbers with his system: gross profit, overhead, net profit. How much work does the PM handle? Who sells and how much and how compensated? Sales process, design agreement, charge for estimate, visit to home and when, showroom. That's a good place to start, he said. That's why he was kind of tossing the 90 minutes, because that whole thing is, as my Jewish client in Connecticut says, a big matzo ball. That's a big matzo ball right there. So what are some ways that you would kind of approach or tackle or answer that?
Well, what I'm looking for is I'm expecting to make 46% on my gross profit. And sometimes I make up to 55%. If I'm smart and I get cash discounts and I buy my materials better and through efficiencies, it can be even better than that. I've been able to reduce my overhead operating expenses that used to be 35%. I got them down to 24%, and then I got them down to 6%. And so I try to keep them down in that overhead. And by subbing out, I eliminate my risk. I eliminate what I need as far as the business goes. And so I can operate extremely lean by doing that. On the net profit in my business, I make a 29% net profit and a 10% owner's share. So I actually make 39% of whatever that contract amount is.
Gross profit margin
is my net profit.
Net profit margin. Okay.
And then on selling, I enjoy, the next one was project management. Who does what? My project managers have one job each, and all they do is manage. They concentrate on that one job the entire time, and with no tools on, and they move that job.
And do they typically have, they've got other projects going on themselves as part of their business. Is your project like 25% of their workload, 50% of their workload? What does that usually look like?
I don't know. And the nice thing is I don't have to keep up with it with my system. Yeah. What I do is I keep 5 to 6 project managers in the wings at all times. And when we finish the project, when it goes through, there's the contact, there's a meeting, we go through design, and I see that the project is about to come out of the funnel to be ready. Then I can go, which one of these folks, guys and girls, would be best to run this project? And I call them to see if they're available. And I give them as much notice as I can. We're constantly touching base. And then I let them know, I think I've got this. I'll call and confirm as soon as we've got the contract. Once we do that, then I've told the client we're going to start in anywhere from 1 week to 3 weeks, maybe 6 weeks if it's custom cabinetry, which means 5 weeks actually. And so they have time to wrap up what they're doing, to step over, come into the office and start prepping for that. Look at all of the design, look at the 3D drawings, watch the virtual tour, start calling.
And they quote it to you as far as what they're going to charge?
No, I pay them a flat fee for running the job, and that's already set up ahead of time.
Got it.
So with my guys, I have a budget that swings anywhere from 6% to 10%. I usually pay 8%. I feel that number can go up based on their own efficiencies, and the better they get at the job, I can actually wind up paying them more than that.
Got it.
And so they're taking that. And that also means that I can't do small jobs. I have to do bigger jobs, or it's not fair to the project.
Starting where? What does that mean?
Really, right now it's at 20,000. I don't do anything under 20,000. And even if I do a job at 20,000, I put more money into the job. I'll pay the project manager, another 60 to 80% because it's too small. They couldn't,
Yeah.
they can't turn it around quick enough to make enough. And so that's kind of moving up to maybe a 30 to eventually probably 50,000 minimum.
Okay. Cool.
In order to make that.
And then we got to make sure Tate's happy. Who sells and how much and how compensated?
I sell, and so that's a part of, I enjoy meeting with clients and enjoy that whole process. I do turn over, I'm selling the design price contract, and then I'm selling the construction contract. In between, I may or may not be at those meetings. I hire designers, and my designers are drawing everything up in 3D, virtual tour, virtual goggles, 360 view, and they're having the meetings and building the scope of work. I do the pricing on the job and present the contract.
And then on the sales process, charging for estimate, design agreement, what does that look like?
I do. I started charging for estimates. It's a word that we're not allowed to use in my company. I started charging for estimates 28
Wait,
years.
did you start charging for estimates or detailed specifications and a guaranteed budget?
I began when I decided that I could not charge for estimates and it would work. Then I changed that, and I no longer charge for estimates. I charge to design their job and price their job, which includes blueprints, virtual tour, scope of work. And because I presented a higher value at the same meeting, I would have given a free estimate. Then people started pulling out their checkbooks and paying me in order to do that. And so 28 years ago, I began charging to give people design price agreements on their job.
So it's possible? Is that what you're saying?
Our average charge for that is $3,500.
Okay. How would you encourage somebody to start down that path if they're not doing it now?
I think part of it is what you were referring to earlier, is that you need to add design to your business. That doesn't mean that you have to go hire a designer full time. I subcontract all my design work. There are people all around that can do that, graphic designers who can do this, the students at local colleges. There are a lot of different ways of getting that done. A lot of people who offer the service. And so you can hire them to draw the job. You can hire, if they have the ability to measure then and draw the job, fine. Otherwise you can do that and give them the dimensions. And then of course with the computer program, it's ready to be set up in 3D. And then we also added the 360 virtual tour. And then as of last spring, we added virtual goggles.
Yeah, and that could be what you just described. It could be an interior designer, it could be a drafts person. There's all kinds of different ways. But what I heard there is just start. And what's so often what happens is, okay, that makes sense. I'm so sick of wasting my time, doing this all for free. And you pitch it, and you get excited and pitch it one time, and then it works. And you leave that meeting with a signed design agreement and a check. And a lot of times confidence goes from 20% up to 80% in a hurry. It's like, oh man, I wish I would have done this sooner. So I think that's a good one. So we got a rapid fire here because I said, Rob, we got it. Although I was thinking if we keep talking, then some of my mastermind people are going to dial in and it could be kind of fun, but we're going to wrap up in a couple minutes here. So it's a little rapid fire. Chris Miller said, building the business to ultimately sell it. If you want to build a remodeling business to ultimately sell it, give me 2 or 3 quick ideas related to that. You got to make sure you do.
If you're going to build a business to sell it, you do what I used to do, and you have to have staff. You have to have, I would think, probably 5 staff. You're actually selling a location and the people who are doing all of those different jobs. That was one of the things that, as this new concept for me, as I walked away from it, I actually had to go to my financial advisor and say, I can no longer sell my business as an individual. I'm making more by running the business in this new fashion, and I need to decimate the company that I've set up to sell. And so I had to walk away from that value, but I easily made up what I would have made if I had sold the business. I made that up probably I would say in the first year. I was making that money on a regular basis. And so I actually walked away from that concept that so many people are pushing toward. The other thing is I didn't want to sell my friends, Kyle. It's like, these are people who, these are some of my best friends. So why would I do that? Instead, I took them and I encouraged them to go into business, and then I hired them, and I kept hiring them and kept hiring them.
Cool.
And
It's kind of that's a unique spin on it. So I'm not gonna ask you for another one on that. That's just a very unique spin, and it's perspective of, well, if you want to do that, your business has to look a certain way, but is that what you want? Cool. And then Chris Mosley said building a better business. So you're gonna answer a couple things of, like, if you want to build a better business, what are a couple things, maybe even just emphasizing a couple of things we already hit on, or what else comes to mind when you say, here's a couple of ways to do that?
It really has to do with all the different parts and pieces of the business. We have isolated to about 27 different things that you need to know in order to run a business. And so we actually concentrate on that as we're talking to people or helping them. Usually when people call me, they ask me just, one, maybe two questions, but there's so many, different details. If you really want to run the business well, you need to understand everything about the business and how one thing affects the other thing, so that once you plug it in, it runs smoothly. So you're really building this engine, and you're getting all of these components together to make this thing work. And so you really have to look at it as a big picture. This is not just, oh, I need to be better at sales and better at marketing. Like, there's more to running a business than that. My marketing is actually what gave me the ability to sell and close so well. It's because the right customer is coming in the door, and we're holding their hand and walking them straight through the process until we get to the closing. For me, is one piece of paper in front of them and an ink pen. It's like,
which also is the key to the rest of the project working. If you were putting the wrong client in the start of this, the whole thing doesn't work. You put the right client, and you've built a system to work with that type of client. Yeah, I see that. Cool. So Rob, I'll share at the end here, because you're going to be hesitant to do it. So Rob's been a part of my Remodelers community group for years and years, and I've seen him. This is at remodelerscommunity.com, the little private Facebook group, and I've seen him just give, and then as we started talking a little bit more, I go, oh, Rob's got a couple things he's doing from a consulting standpoint. Now, he's too much of a gentleman to ever mention that on my private Facebook group. And also he's like, well, I don't, this is your podcast, Kyle. I don't want to mention it either. But Rob is doing these 1 day and 3 day springboard is what it's called.
It is.
Springboard kind of intensives. So if you sit there and go, oh, those 27 things, that's the 3 day outline. The 1 day thing, it's hitting on a couple of those. So he's got that going on. And then he has his private Facebook group, Remodel It! Building a better remodeling business. So if you search Remodel It! Or Remodel It on Facebook, you'll probably find it. And you've got that going, and we've got some nice crossover of people in both of our worlds there. So that's a good way to do it. And then how else could they get in contact with you if they want to chat with you, consulting, or the 3 day or the 1 day? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Really can contact me by email, rob@remodelitconsulting.com.
Okay, rock and roll.
That's it.
That was fun.
Thanks, Kyle. It's fun to see you again.
You as well. I think we'll end things there, and then let's end things with this. If people heard nothing else during that whole thing, what would be the one thing you'd really want to double back on and emphasize? And then I'll share mine.
Whew.
You want me to go first?
You go first.
Give you time to think. We'll go age before beauty, or beauty, whatever, however you want to say it. My big thing is there's principles being talked about here. Speed at which we're turning things around, structure and strategy of building a business. And there is nobody out there, Rob's not going to say it, I'm not going to say it, there's nobody out there that says this is although you kind of said it with the trade partner thing, this is the only way to do this. It's not. It's one of the beauties of our industry, of the remodeling world. But there's some principles here that should have an impact on everybody listening to you. Maybe you do go full tilt of what Rob's describing. Maybe there's just a step you can take in that direction that helps make your business more profitable or less risky, et cetera. So that's my big thing, is hear the ideas, and don't just hear the idea and say, that doesn't fit me, adios. Hear the idea and say, how does this apply? And look for the next right thing to do related to it. That's my big thing I want them to hear. What would be yours?
Yeah, Kyle, I would say it's really the first thing that I talk to everybody about is their personal vision. what they want to create.
Hmm.
And the most important thing is, instead of assuming that you know the answer, taking the time to investigate. We probably talked about 8, 10 different items today. It's like, we're not trying to say, jump in here, swallow this whole thing and run with it. What we're doing is, if one of those things was intriguing, then investigate it a little further. Ask questions. Don't assume that you know that something won't work, when in this situation we prove that it does work. It's a different way of running your business. It's a different operating system. And it's like, be curious and be open to learn. That's fun.
Excellent. Cool. All right. Until next time, thanks for listening to Remodelers on the Rise. Talk to you again soon. Thanks, Rob.